Greetings, insiders. It's July 9th, and this week, we're getting into how two indie shops beat out big holding company agencies for a $550 million account. Plus, Meta's new CMO, what beauty brands are getting right about AI, tips for reaching 50-plus consumers, and Winhook's anti-AI beer campaign. I'm Parker Heron, and this is Ad Age Insider's weekly report. Subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss our news roundups. And catch a new deep dive conversation tomorrow, checking in on media budgets for the rest of 2026. You won't want to miss it. So back to this week's news. The common thread among these stories is that smart strategy, whether in a pitch room, a workflow, or a creative brief, is outpacing size, speed, and technology for its own sake. So let's talk about those indie agencies. Butler, Shine, Stern and Partners, and media agency Canvas Worldwide beat out holding company agencies for California Lottery's 5-year, $550 million account. The competition included Stagwell's 72 and Sunny and Publicis Group's Saatchi and Saatchi. The lottery handed the duo a brief built around Super Lotto Plus, which is a lower profile game than things like Scratchers or Mega Millions. BSSP and Canvas framed the $1 price point as a differentiator and turned the lottery's cash-only model, which is typically an obstacle, into a tactile selling point instead. Here's why it matters. Lottery accounts are among the most stable, long-term revenue sources in an industry where clients switch agencies pretty often. BSSP and Canvas's win also shows how the agency's deep partnership, a 9-year media creative alliance, can outmaneuver larger networks. The takeaway is that winning briefs sometimes come from reframing a client's limitations as the creative hook, rather than working around them. Next up, let's talk about marketing to consumers aged 50 and up. The 50-plus audience is more digitally active than most marketers assume on Facebook, mobile gaming apps, and streaming. They respond well to long-form content, product result messaging, and community building. Brands such as Jones Road Beauty, Rick Steves Europe, and Estee Lauder have built real traction by tailoring formats and tone to this group specifically. This matters because older consumers represent substantial purchasing power that the industry consistently undervalues and underspends against. Susan Lee Colby, founder and chief creative officer of Grace Creative, said this to Ad Age, quote, "This is a digitally engaged, commercially dominant audience that remains dramatically undervalued by most marketers and brands." So if your brand has defaulted to short-form, trend-driven content across the board, this demographic is likely being underserved. Here's another headline you should know. Meta has a new CMO who is taking over at a critical moment. Alex Schultz, who has served as Chief Marketing Officer since 2020, is stepping into a newly creative Chief Data Officer position. It's the first in the company's history. Denise Moreno, a Meta veteran since 2009, is taking over as CMO. The move comes as Meta is pushing its AI glasses into the mainstream and is working to compete in the AI race against Google, Microsoft, Amazon, OpenAI, and Anthropic. The restructuring reflects a broader shift across the tech industry. Data has become central enough to growth strategy that it now warrants its own seat at the executive table. Meta is betting that giving data its own dedicated leader, separate from brand and marketing, will sharpen decision-making as competition for AI adoption intensifies. Here's what to watch out for. Moreno is inheriting a marketing function now separated from the data infrastructure that used to sit under one CMO. It's a structure that other companies are likely to watch and perhaps copy. Now let's talk about AI and how beauty brands are ahead of the curve. Brands such as e.l.f. Beauty, L'Oreal, and Tarte are among the most advanced AI adopters in marketing. They use it for data mining, chatbots, content versioning, and product discovery. Their edge comes from one key move: rebuilding workflows around AI from the start rather than adding it into existing processes. These brands have now become a benchmark for other categories trying to integrate AI without losing brand trust or creative control. The takeaway here is where in the process you introduce AI tools rather than simply which ones. And finally, here's a little creative inspo for you. African brewer Windhoek Beer launched an anti AI campaign starring James Kumar, a Kenyan man born with 6 fingers on each hand. Of course, an extra finger is frequently associated with AI generated images. So the campaign pledges that all Windhoek advertising will feature real people and real world production, even if there are 6 fingers. You can see that campaign and find links to all of the reporting I've mentioned today at the link in this episode's description. Thank you to my fellow Ad Agers for lending their fabulous reporting to today's roundup, and thank you for listening. I'm Parker Heron, and this is Ad Age Insider's Weekly Report. I'll catch you next week.